Hi everyone, I'm Abhiram. I'm an events executive at UCL Fintech, and today we have a really interesting speaker. We have Leah Tasoudi who's a former FinCrime data engineer at Revolut and is currently a data engineer at Sainsbury's Digital. So I'd like to invite Leah to join us now, and she's got a presentation prepared, and I'll leave the floor to Leah. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Abiram. Thanks for having me. Thanks for organizing this. Right, so I'm gonna dive straight into it because then we can have more time for your questions. Basically, what I am going to talk about, I don't know if I think you can see my screen, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
everything's
yeah.
good. Yeah.
So what I'll talk about is basically how I got to basically from the time that I began, how I got to where I am today. So then you can also structure your questions around that. Basically, get how do you get started? Um, Currently, I'm working for Sainsbury's as a data engineer. Before that, I was at Revolut, which is a fintech company, as a data engineer again. Before that, I was working for Omnicom, which is a marketing agency, and before that, some business intelligence agencies, and I started my career as a data analyst. So I will start first by mentioning how do you get started? How do you choose a career if you don't really know what it is that you want to do? And I guess depending on what your degree is, you might, after you finish your degree, you might understand that it's not really what you want to do. You're not really passionate about it. And I didn't have a passion after I finished my degree. My passion was completely unrelated to what I started, and I didn't have, I couldn't structure my professional career around it. So I thought, what else would be fulfilling? And it's usually what you're good at and what works for you personality wise. So I am an introvert, so I like working on puzzles alone. And my background wasn't my degrees in physics, so I'm good at maths, statistics, calculus, stuff like that. So going into a data analytics kind of role, at least in the beginning of my career, was kind of I would say, the natural thing for me to do, path of least resistance. So I started in data analytics because it's also the I would say, from a point of view of being pragmatic, it's also the easiest thing to do, working with your skill set from what you got from university to be able to pass the interviews. That's the most important thing, at least in the beginning, getting your foot on the door, which would lead me, I think, as a nice segue to how you choose a company that you would like to join. The first company that I joined was a startup. And if you're someone who doesn't really know, you don't have a set goal and you're going for it, so you're kind of browsing, you're shopping around, I would say that startups are a great place to start because you get exposed to so many different things. You will be basically thrown into work and you will be expected to give results quickly. So you get to learn a lot of things fast, but also you will be able to help out in different sectors. Different, you will have exposure to different responsibilities outside of your main role. So from that point of view, it is a great place to start startups. Also at startups, you have ownership of your work. You start a project and you work on it and you finish it, and you have a good chunk of work that it's yours, and you can claim it, and that's really rewarding. So that's an extra, I would say, positive thing about joining a startup. And there is this, it is exciting being part of something that it is completely new because you feel like I'm also helping build this thing. So that can be immensely rewarding. Now, the drawbacks of joining a startup, I would say, is that you might not have a great work-life balance, but for me, at least in the beginning, that wasn't so much of a problem because I was just starting my career. I was eager to learn new things, so it didn't really matter to me whether I would have to do some overtime. So yes, at startups, usually you will have to do a bit more overtime compared to a more well-established company. But I think also that's part of the deal, and the deal is clear. When you join a startup, it's kind of like work now and reap the benefits later when we get an IPO and we'll cash out big. So if you are comfortable making that trade-off, then a startup is a great, I would say, great choice for you. And then I've also worked in companies that have been established for many, many years. And the differences, I would say, are mostly around, yeah, work-life balance, because you do get, as soon as it's 5 p.m., you can clock out and continue the next day, unless it's an emergency, of course, and you get better benefits. And when you choose a company that has been around for longer than a startup, you need to make sure that they also have interesting projects for you to join, that they have work, and they are interested in uh, keeping it fresh, so you have stuff to do and you have stuff to learn and room to grow instead of a monolithic kind of establishment. And now I want to move into progressing within a role, which I think is quite important, at least in the beginning. Um, if you secure a place and you're straight out of uni, you usually don't have much, you won't have much to offer in terms of immediate hardcore results, because you don't know much about the day-to-day um, workings of a company. You don't have much professional experience, and the companies that hire you know this. So your value comes out of basically being enthusiastic to learn. Your potential is your value, and your ability to find answers to questions on your own, being able to structure questions and answer them and go to places and find the answers, which hopefully you have learned as part of your degree, is where your value lies. And also, um, it is extremely important to understand that in order for you to stand out, you need to be efficient, you need to be effective. When you get a task, no matter how small, you must be able to complete it, and complete it well. Um, and also, you must be able to pose questions. You can ask questions. People expect you that you will be asking questions, but don't take their time for granted. Try, if you have a question, try to find the answers online. Try 10 different things, and if they don't work, then go to someone more senior and then ask them a well-structured question. Tell them what you have tried and you have failed, and then they can offer you a piece of advice to unlock you if you're stuck. Um, I would say that's basically what would help you stand out as soon as you begin, and then you you will be able to, as soon as you get experience, then things that I would say are much easier. Um, Finally, I want to touch on salary negotiations. Yes, in the beginning of your career, you don't have much leverage, um, but it is very easy for, especially if you're working with data, if you're working within fintech, it is very hot right now. So people are trying to attract talent. So if you know this, you can negotiate better, I think. And if after 2 years at a role you have armed yourself with knowledge, when you move to a company next time, I would say negotiate hard, negotiate to the maximum that you can. If people can give you 45K, they usually can give you 50K. Or if they can't do 50K, they can do a sign-on bonus, or they can do options. Um, so it's, I would say, be ruthless when you're negotiating, because you kind of owe it to yourself. Uh, and finally, I would say life out of work. In the beginning of your career, you have to decide if you're happy doing some overtime and potentially progressing faster because you will learn more things if you spend more time at work. Or if you want to kind of take the long-term approach, that depends on you as a person and what you're comfortable with and what is important to you in the short and long term. As I said in the beginning, startups, they tend to be more demanding, a lot more demanding, but you do get to learn a lot of things fast. So that's kind of a trade-off that you decide if it's worth it to you and then make a career choice. And I would say I would leave it here because then hopefully what I've said would give you a good step to ask any potential questions.
Thank you so much. That was really insightful, and that was really helpful for all our viewers, especially. I just had a few questions about the startups you were talking about.
Yeah.
So, going into a startup, it's quite demanding, as you said. What are some
Yes.
of like the projects that you worked on, and how would you contrast this to like projects that you worked on, let's say at Revolut, at Sainsbury?
The nature of the projects, I would say, is not that much different. I mean, the tools that you use are similar. You use Kubernetes, you use Kafka, at least in data engineering. So the tools that you use are not vastly different. It's just the volume and the intensity and the fact that you constantly need to change your approach. When you're working at a startup, there's not a set way that you do things. And you have to be able to move fast, of course, because they create new products all the time. It's an exciting time. So you have to be able to deliver and deliver fast. So I would say it's just the sheer volume of things and the speed at which you have to deliver them that is different at startups, not so much the tools that you use or the projects.
Definitely, definitely. I completely understand that. And how would your normal day look like at a startup? Would every day be different? Would there be some commonalities?
Uh, the that's a good question. I haven't thought of it really. I mean, the day is pretty common, whether it is a startup or a well-established group. Um, Usually, it depends on what you work best. What are your most productive hours? So you single them. For me, it's the beginning of the day. So let's say 8 to 12 or 8 to 1 is my most productive time. So I try to minimize the meetings at the time so that I'm able to focus on actual work, actual coding. Then in the afternoon, just do some PRs, help out more junior members of the team, um, meetings, stuff like that. Um, Basically, it depends on how you want to structure your day. You have that luxury if you're working at least in data, which is what I do. Um, you have the luxury to structure your day pretty much how you see fit. Um, so that's what I do.
Cool, cool. That sounds really interesting. And due to COVID-19, how has it been working from home as opposed to working from the office? Has there been any challenges, any ups, any downs?
I would say for me, it's been predominantly positive because I enjoy being able to focus and distractions and noises. I find noises very distracting. So being able to work from home is very beneficial to me. The only downside is that you don't get to see the people that you work with. And yeah, I would say this sucks because I recently also moved to Sainsbury's, so I haven't really met the people that I haven't met my team apart from Zoom calls and um, online chats like Slack. So yeah, that I haven't really. Uh, Data engineering is not as soon as you have a specification of what you have to do, you can go and work independently. You don't really need to meet people face to face. If you're stuck, you Slack someone. But it hasn't really affected what I do greatly. At least in the beginning, it was difficult finding the balance of, okay, now I have to stop working because I'm at home. Because if you're in an office and you come back home, you don't have your computer with you. You can just relax. But if you're home, it's very easy to just go online and something that is still bugging you in your mind, and logging off is not as easy.
That's very true, and definitely the productivity has increased working from home.
Hmm.
And on the COVID-19 note, I mean, a lot of startups have been affected, and a lot of startups have been thriving as well during COVID-19. So, what advice would you give to students going towards startups in this volatile market because of COVID-19?
Hmm. There's, I mean, people are still hiring, perhaps not to the same volume as before. Um, but the same advice that I would give even pre-COVID, it is that you have to prepare for the role that you're going in for, and learn how to write basically a good CV that stands out. No one expects a recent graduate to have, I don't know, the equivalent of 10 years of experience and have done 100 different projects, but show that you have excelled. I have done, I don't know, 5 projects. What in my first CV, I was writing about projects that I had done in physics or labs, something that would be interesting, computing labs. If I had done a course, like an Excel course, because I started just with Excel, so I just put that in. Anything that they can see kind of a grain of what you can turn out to become. Um, that's going to give you the best chance. So polish your resume, and again, if you enter an industry that you don't know much about, it's okay to just interview just to see what knowledge you are lacking. Just go to don't be afraid. Take as many interviews as you can, because then you will be able to narrow the focus of what you need to learn to get into a company. At least that's what I did. I was taking interviews in order to see what the tests were like, what I should focus on. And if I failed 5 of them and then I was successful in the rest, that was a win in my books. So
Yeah,
that worked for me. So do that, I guess.
that's really true. And on the note of like technology and data in particular, especially during COVID-19, the demand for data, big data, data analytics has really increased. How has this affected you in the workplace? Do you have more projects coming in? How has this really affected the company as a whole?
Uh, Absolutely, it has. And when COVID started and I was still at Revolut, the workload just increased dramatically. Like I was personally doing a lot of overtime because I enjoyed the projects that were coming in, so I wanted to get more, kind of greedy like that. Um, so yes, you do get into interesting projects because everyone is focusing even more on data and the power of data. They're basically trying to make as efficient decisions as they possibly can. And to do that, there's plenty to do with what I do: data cleaning, creating pipelines. If they want to create new models for data science, you got to work with your data scientists to create the data sets that they need. So yeah, absolutely. At every crisis, I would say there's some some industries that benefit, and I would say that we have been very lucky in that we can work from home, and we have shielded ourselves. Um, at least in the UK, the economy has not collapsed, so we have been quite lucky in that respect.
Yeah, definitely. We have been quite lucky, and it's COVID-19 has taken a turmoil on everyone really. And
Yep.
mentioning Revolut, you are actually a FinCrime data engineer there.
Yes.
Could you speak a bit about what FinCrime is and how it's related to fintech and so on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. So fin crime is short for financial crime. Basically, any institution, any financial institution needs to be able to shield itself from the risk of fraudulent activity occurring. So there's people that want to take advantage of Revolut users' accounts by account takeovers, basically any sort of financial risk that you would have in a financial institution. So all the banks, they have in place systems to prevent that, and so does Revolut. I'm not sure. I don't think I can go into further details, but basically, all the banks, they have different models. We have data scientists that they work on many different projects, from users uploading fraudulent photographs or users creating multiple accounts with the same photos, or fraudulent activity occurring with a user's account, that sort of thing. So we have different data science teams that work on creating models to catch these fraudulent activities and protect both Revolut from exposure to risk and the users from having basically securing their funds. So that's what FinCrime is in a nutshell, protecting the bank from having any fraudulent activity occurring. And most of that, I would say, occurs automatically in a programmatic fashion. At least I can speak for the bank that I was working on. And it's a very interesting sector. You need to constantly be changing your approach. Because fraudsters, they always find new ways to trick the system. So you have data science. It's a very rich field for data scientists to create their models, and for data engineers as well, because they're the load of data and the fact that your system needs to be resilient. You need to be monitoring it. It needs to be constantly up. It's quite tight and quite interesting as well.
That sounds really, really interesting, and that was a good brief summary of a huge field. That was really nice. And how exactly do data engineers really? So I know they interact with data scientists. Do they also interact with machine learning engineers and
Yeah,
use of AI?
yeah, absolutely. So I would say that depends on the structure of each company and the people that they are hiring. If you're a startup, for instance, you would hire a machine learning engineer, and you would expect them also to be able to deploy their models. But if you're a larger, well, when I say startup, I mean very early stage startup. But yeah, you work with anyone that has anything to be deployed at scale as a data engineer. And you need to be able to tell them how of course, you don't interfere with them in terms of how the model works, but structuring of the code, coding practices, making sure that it's not prone to simple things like injection attacks, um, how it would run on the cloud, how we would make sure that it's monitored, that sort of thing. So it's a collaborative process, and you work with anyone that is in your team and needs something deployed and needs something to be running smoothly.
That sounds really cool. And especially during the past few years, there have been an increasing number of papers on big data, AI, machine learning, and there's been an exponential growth in this field. Where do you see the future of AI, machine learning, and big data heading?
Oof. To be honest, I have no clue. I mean, in terms of which fields it will be used in, I would say we keep finding new ways to utilize our current tools. More recently, I was talking to some guys that wanted to use AI models to revolutionize the field of the safety of construction, and having monitors in construction sites to make sure that everything is being monitored in real time, and Internet of Things and stuff like that. So who can say really? I don't have a concrete answer. You see people doing interesting things all the time.
Yeah, true. That's very true. It's a whole innovation hub, and That would be the end of my questions on the technology side. I just wanted to touch a bit on the diversity aspects and
Mhm.
why you think diversity and inclusion is so important in the workplace.
I think it's kind of inevitable. Like your workplace should reflect the rest of society. Otherwise, it's like a manufactured environment that at some point is going to stop serving the users. So it makes sense from that point of view. Also, I think that it like data in our field of software engineering is, I would say, quite progressive. So that happens naturally. I mean, I haven't faced any sort of sexism, at least in my field, in what I've been doing. So we're quite lucky in that respect, in that the people that we work with are quite like-minded. So yeah, it is important because, as I said, if an environment doesn't reflect the people, the work environment, and especially if you're a startup and you're trying to create products that will be used by the maximum amount of people, you need to be able to have in the room minds that think differently and can complement each other.
Definitely, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And it's really how diversity actually is like the definition of innovation. It's creativity. And I'd like to ask if you have any advice to female students who are interested in going into tech and in a male-dominated field, how can they really stand out and put themselves forward going into tech?
I would say just don't be scared of it. Yes, there are more men in data engineering and software development, but they're cool people. You know, they are not. As I said, in what we do, I have never faced anyone that treated me any differently just because I'm a woman. Um, and if you think that I don't know, you're not good enough, just trust me that there's a lot of mediocre people out there. So if you are good, you will stand out just by virtue of your work. Um, I'm sure that there are cases that people are treated differently because of characteristics that they cannot control, like the color of their skin, their sex, their sexual orientation. Um, and it should always be brought to light. I haven't faced it. I've been very lucky and very privileged to not have faced this. So I would say don't be scared of this. Um, and if it ever comes to your attention, there's always you always have the option, at least if you're working in London, either to leave and find better employment or to bring it to someone's attention. So yeah, just treat it as a non-issue. And if you do have to face it, if you're as I said, if you're in London and you're quite privileged to be in an industry that doesn't make it that much of an issue to you and will protect you if you ever face any sort of um, if you are treated differently based on that. So I hope that makes you feel safe and it doesn't become an issue.
That was some really good advice, and that was inspiring. I just wanted to ask you, having studied physics, where was your real, how did you really find your passion for data and technology in general? Was it during your physics course? Was it due to something you did outside of your course?
No, it wasn't really. It was kind of an accident for me because when I finished physics, I realized it's not really, when I finished my degree, it's not 100% what I want to do. So then I just started doing things that I thought were interesting and that were utilizing my skill sets. And as I said, I was good in math. So I went into data and analytics. And while in a company, I got to see what data engineering is. So I moved to that direction just to check it out for a few months, and then I really liked it. It played to my strengths, and there were all sorts of interesting puzzles coming my way all the time, so I continued in that field. But it wasn't kind of I was just doing anything I thought was that I would find myself in and was interesting. I kept doing it, and something, something sticked.
Great. That sounds really good. And on that note, what are some really valuable transferable skills that students should try and have in this day and age?
I would say the most important skill is that you're able to formulate specific questions and find the answers yourself. Um, that is the key to anything that you want to do, regardless of discipline. You must be able to ask the right questions, not open-ended questions, and lose yourself exploring and going on different tangents. Break down a problem, ask the right questions in each step of the way, and be able to go use the tools available to you and find the answers. Nowadays, we have Google, we have everything, we have huge libraries, we have people on the internet have faced similar problems to you, so you will be able to find an answer. So I would say breaking down a problem into simpler questions that you can answer yourselves. This to me is the most important skill you can have.
That's really true. Curiosity is really what drives a lot of people into doing great things. Um, on that note, I know that a lot of students, especially at UCL Fintech, are planning to go into data science, data engineering, machine learning, and related fields like that. What are some of your most useful learning resources, and how can someone really get into data science, data engineering?
For data science, there's a lot of courses online. You can try Udemy. You can try. I don't want to. I'm not sure if I can basically endorse them, but I do use them quite frequently. If there's something new skill I want to learn, um, I check those resources. Then there's edX, which I think is predominantly free. Um, Tutorials online, Medium articles, people that have faced or have had similar questions to the ones that you're having right now. Anything you put on Google, you can find a pretty good set of resources to educate yourself. And then there's also, like, if you really want if you really like the traditional classroom set environment, I know that in London in particular there is after hours classes, like tutorial style companies that you basically go there and they teach you the basics of data science. So you start with Python, you start with how you are structuring your code, they introduce you to the basics, and then they also give you interesting problems, 2 3 problems in the course of 6 months to work on. So you kind of get an idea, you kind of get a taste of what data science is. Now, for data engineering, I'm not that certain if you can focus just on data engineering. For me, it kind of happened organically within the companies themselves. So there was a need and we needed to do something fast. I was like, okay, let me go see how I can do this. But for data science, yes, there's a lot of resources online and even classes that you can join.
Yeah, that's really helpful, and those are some really good resources as well. Moving forward and looking ahead, I know it's quite early to tell, and what are your future career plans and aspirations?
Hmm. I've I just want to keep doing things that are interesting. I just want to keep learning things. I want to learn more on, um, algorithms, because my background is in physics, so I never got that education at university. So I keep reading, I keep learning, and I keep finding applications about these things on what I do on a day-to-day basis. Um, Building better foundations for myself. Um, and yeah, I mean, in my field, in data, in software engineering, you won't have a dull day in your life because you can't possibly learn all there is to learn out there. So there's always going to be something you're unfamiliar with, and things change all the time. So be prepared that whatever you start with, you're going to constantly need to be learning about new frameworks, new technologies coming in. I would say that the paradigms, the basics of how these things work remain the same, or not the same, but the foundation is the mechanisms are similar, but frameworks change from time to time, and you need to keep.
Definitely. There's a lot of adaptability involved. And I would just like to ask, to finish off, if you have any last words of advice for young professionals like me going and starting our journey.
I would say don't be afraid to try new things. Um, Again, the most what you want to do, you're now finishing university, so you have pretty good resources. You have a pretty good network of people that you can go to for advice, and you have, hopefully by the end of your degrees, you will have taught yourselves how to basically self self educate yourselves until the end of your lives. Um, my main piece of advice is to be excited about what you want to do. So then, you, when you go to interview for jobs, people will get this quality that you are eager to learn. And in data and in software engineering, everyone is very generous with their time, and everyone wants to share knowledge. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Just ask targeted questions so you don't take advantage of other people's time. And don't be afraid of it, because anything you want to learn, there's someone out there that there's a resource out there for you to learn. So just go for it. And if you don't know what it is that you want to do, just try random stuff, and something is going to stick at some points. You will find something that you find interesting.
Definitely, that was a good sum up. And I think there's been a question that's come through from one of the viewers. Um, so Augustine is asking, you talk about learning fast for new graduates. What aspect of a company should I look for in order to find a good learning environment?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. In order to?
In order to find a good learning environment.
Ah. Um, there's not one particular division of a company that will expose you to a good learning environment, but it is important that you choose your manager and your team when you interview for a team. You choose them wisely. So it's not only them interviewing you, it's also you interviewing them. So you need to kind of get a feel, will I be able to grow in this role? Will they give me the room to take risks, and to make my own decisions? Will they give me some sort of autonomy so that I can grow? Or will I just have to do, all the mundane tasks that most senior people don't want to do? Which, of course, we all have to do in the beginning, because frankly, more senior people should not be working on those things, because they get paid. Their time is their skills, I would say, can be used elsewhere. But I would say that this is an important skill as well, to be able to kind of understand if the team that you're joining is going to help you grow. And a good place to start would be if you join a company that you see them uh, now just in a startup, basically. Then you will buy. I would be very surprised if you're not exposed to many different things. So choose the team carefully that you're joining, and perhaps go for a startup, because then they will give you more of a in startups, if you want to learn something, it's much easier. Let's say that I want to learn something about infosec, and we don't have a set team yet, I can take it upon myself, research it, and do it, and give a result. But if it is a big, well-established company that they have an infosec team already set up, it's much more difficult for me to find my way into that team and to learn about that sector. So yes, go for a team that you like that's going to give you the room to grow, and for a company that is perhaps a startup, so you can get exposure to many different things.
That was really helpful. And just two final questions from our viewers. One question is how is success commonly measured for data engineers and data scientists?
So we all have goals and KPIs. It's based on your deliverables most of the time. So at Revolut, we had both KPIs for our deliverables, our team's deliverables, and the wider, the whole organization. So your contribution was to what your manager said, that you're supposed to deliver these 10 things by the end of the quarter, and you delivered, let's say, 9. Great. And then it's about how you were helping out the team. So how much your team managed to deliver in general. Out of the 20 projects that you had, you managed to finish up 18. And then generally the company, how did the company do? So it depends on the individual case, but we all have KPIs. So we all plan out ahead of time, and we say that, okay, right now for the next quarter, we want to clean up some repositories or some models that we have, or we want to improve security, or we want to introduce a new tool like Airflow or Kubernetes, or we want to investigate using Kafka streams for whatever that may be. So you kind of plan your work in quarters, and then at the end of the quarter, based on your deliverables, your team's deliverables, you judge your performance. Currently at Sainsbury's, you also have goals, learning goals, and how you the projects that you take should serve your goals. So if I want to learn more about, I don't know, testing or Scala, I would take a project that is supposed to be written in Scala, and I would also make sure that I have thorough tests in my code. So that's kind of how your performance is judged.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. And the last question from our viewers is there anything that you're really worried about in your work? What really keeps you up at night if there's something in your work?
When I was working at Revolut, the thing that would keep me up at night would be if the system is up or down, because it was a quite important part of the organization. And it was also if it stopped working, the consequences could be immense. So that was keeping me up. But that doesn't always have to be the case. It depends on the projects that you take on, your seniority level, and what you're comfortable with. So depending on, let's say you join a marketing company, and your main workload is building ETL pipelines. Yes, you should try to be professional and make sure that everything that you do works 100% of the time. But I wouldn't feel like if I had my internal clients, my analysts telling me the next day, oh, this pipeline is not working, I wouldn't be as stressed as when it's a system that is live, is used by millions of people, and you're basically responsible for their assets. So it depends on the projects that you take.
Thank you so much. And on a final note, I would just like to thank you so much for coming on board and giving us your time, and it's really appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abiram, and I will wish you guys all the best and good luck now that you're finishing university, or anyone joining the workforce this year. All the best. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all our viewers and your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Have a good day. Bye.